Hi everyone! So in addition to Ella Enchanted for the Cinderella Adaptation Presentation, the other two stories that I chose were The Rough-Faced Girl and The Irish Cinderlad. So for a brief overview of all three, I'll start with Ella Enchanted. Ella Enchanted is about a young girl who has a terrible stepfamily. Her father doesn't treat her very well, and she gets this gift from a fairy that ends up being a curse, which is obedience. So she has to be obedient to every command people give her, and her stepfamily starts to see this obedience in her, and they start to use it against her, which makes her life really rough and unenjoyable. So, with that being said, with all her sorrow in that moment, she goes on a lot of these quests to find the fairy Lucinda who gave her this gift. And along the way, she ends up realizing that she's in love with Prince Char, and Prince Char professes his love for Ella, and she has to decide what to do because his life could be in danger of this curse. So her whole story is just her trying to battle this curse that she has, and in the end, she therefore um, gets rid of this curse by herself by being obedient and not listening to all the other noise, just doing it all by herself. So I thought was really cool. And then The Rough-Faced Girl is about this Native American girl whose same situation is miserable from her stepfamily. Her stepsisters make her sit in front of the fire and all day and tend to the fire, which makes her hair dry and her skin all scarred up. And her story is that the invisible being, everybody wants to marry the invisible being, but they have to be able to see him. And the rough-faced girl is able to see him, so she collects her jewels and her moccasins by herself. I mean, her dad gives her the jewel or the shells, and the moccasins. But she goes to Invisible Being and she tells a sister um, what the Invisible Being's bow and sled is made out of, and gets to marry the Invisible Being in the end. And then the Irish Cinderlad is about Beacon. Same thing, miserable from his step family, and he's a cattle herder, and he meets this bull out one of his days working, who ends up being a magic bull, and his tale helps Beacon to go and save the princess who's in need, and ends up saving the princess from the dragon with the bull's tail, and ends up being magic, and makes his story happily ever after too. So to start with some similarities with all three of the stories, Ella Enchanted, Rough-Faced Girl, and the Irish Cinderlad, the similarities are they all have a magic helper. The only difference is who their magic helper is. So in Ella Enchanted, her magic helper is Mandy the cook, who is also her fairy godmother, but also Lucinda helps Ella to be able to get the clothes that she needs to go to the ball to see Prince Char, to reveal herself as Ella when she tries to disguise herself as somebody else. And in The Rough-Faced Girl, the magic helper, I think the magic helper is herself, honestly. I mean, her dad could be the magic helper because he gives her the shells and he gives her the moccasins, but she makes them her own, makes her clothes her own, and goes to see the invisible being all by herself without any help from anybody else other than her dad giving her the shells and the moccasins. In the Irish Cinderlad, the magic helper is the bull, who he meets on one of his days of cattle herding, and the bull helps him by giving him his tail, which is magic and helps him to defeat the giants and the dragon at the end that has the princess, that's going to take the princess away because she's the fairest maiden in the land. So those are some similarities, and some other similarities are that they're all really brave. I mean, this is a normal similarity with all the Cinderella stories, but I like to emphasize that all of the characters are really brave, and although their situation is really messed up with their step family, they're able to overcome that, find magic helpers, and it just shows that good weighs out the evil in all instances. So, with that being said, some differences in all three of these stories obviously is gender. The Irish Cinderlad Beacon is a guy, and Ella and the Rough-Faced Girl, of course, are women. But that's a difference is their gender. Another difference is that they all don't have the magic slipper that makes themselves be recognized as the right person to marry the prince or the princess in the Irish Cinderella's case. So in Ella Enchanted, there is the glass slipper. Her and Char, Ella and Char find the glass slipper at the father's wedding when they're upstairs just messing around, and the rough-faced girl, doesn't have a glass slipper. The only way you're able to marry the invisible being in that story is if you know what his bow and what his sled is made out of, which the rough-faced girl, she knows all of those things. In the Irish Cinderella, it's the boot that he leaves behind, his boot from the battle when he's running away, and the boot ends up fitting him because it's too big for everybody else because it's made for a giant, but it fits Beacon. So the princess, they search for whose owner is the boot, and Beacon is the owner. So yeah, that's my presentation, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great day.